So, in light of supporting all those goals, now I want to tell you why I'm running for governor and what I hope to do for the future of the state of Oklahoma. And one of my first pillars of my administration will be to focus on jobs and the economy and doing every single thing I can to create the very best business climate in the state. And if I can do those things, and I am planning on giving it my very best, then we'll have the revenues in the state to put towards education, and especially higher education, and things that are important priorities for the state of Oklahoma. But if we don't create the jobs and create the better business environment, you're not going to have the revenue that you need. Parents aren't going to have the income that they need to send their children to college if they don't have the good paying jobs in our state. So I'm going to do everything that I can to focus on making Oklahoma have the very best business climate. And what that means is that we work towards keeping our taxes low in the state, and we allow more people to keep their money so they can spend on college and education and building their businesses. And we focus on what I call the cost drivers of business, issues like workers' compensation premium costs, which can be very detrimental to job expansion and creation in our state. I think all of you know that Oklahoma has some of the highest workers' compensation costs in the nation, and that has certainly been something I have focused on for many, many years and will continue to focus on. Having fair workers' compensation costs, but yet also taking care of our injured employees and working towards safer workplaces. And then also have more tort reform is needed in the state of Oklahoma so that businesses and institutions don't have to throw their money down into legal pits, but can put more money towards building their businesses, investing, and creating those jobs. And so one of the first things I'm going to do as governor is to have some of the best and brightest minds have been identifying across the state to be on a governor's task force to look at rules, to look at regulations, and to look at taxation, to look at where Oklahoma is not competitive to other states in our nation, where we may be more competitive, and how we can capitalize on our strengths and then remove our detractors from job creation and investment in our state. Second pillar, and not in this order, but I want to tell you all the main core pillars of my administration, will be, of course, education. And it's essential that we have a highly educated, skilled workforce for our state. So not only can we attract the jobs that we want to bring to Oklahoma, but also so we can retain the jobs that are in the state. I will tell you that as I've been traveling across the state of Oklahoma, and I was in 5 different cities yesterday on a whistle-stop train tour, you might have seen that. But as I was visiting with some of the people I met in Oklahoma, I met a lady who told me she was from California and she had just moved here. And I asked her, I said, did you move here because of a job? And she said, no, I moved here because I was talking to one of my relatives in Cordell, Oklahoma. She was in Cordell, Oklahoma. And she was talking to one of my relatives, and I was telling her about how terrible California is right now with a 55+% budget shortfall, and all the cuts they're having to make to higher education and all the social services and roads and bridges and corrections and law enforcement and all the financial problems that California's having. Can't even refund tax returns back to their citizens. It's their money that they send in. And she said, I was talking to my aunt that lives here in Cordell, and she said, well, why don't you move to Oklahoma? You know, the cost of housing is a lot less, and the cost of living is a lot less. And this lady had told me she got held up at gunpoint by a guy that came up and stuck a gun in her back in California. And it's not real safe in some of the areas there. And she said, I moved to Cordell. And she said, not only did I buy one house, but I bought 2 houses because my money went so much further in our great state. We can be a state that attracts jobs, but in order to do that, we're going to have the workforce that we need in our state. And we can attract those kind of people to move to Oklahoma. So what that means is that we've got to build an education system that prepares our children to operate in the 21st century and certainly in a global economy. With all, not only the states that we compete against, but certainly with the other world, with other portions of the world and world economies. We know different statistics about China and other countries that focus on math and science and really engineering and offer great India, offer great workforces to their society. And so we have to focus on preparing our children in school school, in high school, to be ready to enter into their college years and to have the right preparation so they can be successful when they do get into our colleges and universities. And that's going to be essential in education. The math, the science, the reading will all be important parts of my administration. Getting money into the classroom, having the very best teachers. I'm proud the legislature passed what's called Pay for Performance, which actually measures student performance from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, and also measures the teacher effectiveness. The schools themselves puts that information out there when it goes online for public view, and so that we can hold people accountable and make sure that we're getting the results that we should be getting for our children, and our children can get that excellent education and frankly be prepared to start their college as you need them to be. And then the third thing I want to visit with you about is just government itself. And I know that you have a lot of regents on your boards who look at holding our colleges and universities accountable too, but having accountability in state government itself. And one of the first things I'm going to do is when we have all of our agency heads in place, all of our cabinet secretaries in place, I'm going to bring some private sector people that are used to making things efficient and effective and lean. Look at government and how can we make government work better for all of us? Whether it is starting up a one-stop shop in government for licenses and permits. I talk to a lot of our small business people across our state that tell me they may have to go to 2 or 3 different locations to get a license and a permit. One guy told me 4 yesterday, and how frustrating that is for him. You teach courses on the internet right now. I mean, my daughter is finishing at OU, and she's finishing her degree on the internet. Why can she get a college education on the internet and be able to submit papers and put in her financial information, get her test grades and all that stuff, when we can't even give a license and permit the way we should and make businesses easier for operations by using technology? And that will be one of my main goals, is making government smaller, smarter, more cost efficient, eliminating duplication of services and waste, so that way we will have more money for endowed chairs, more money for higher education, roads and bridges, corrections, law enforcement, and important state needs. It's our money that government spends. We should demand, and we do deserve, a government that works for us, one that will be efficient and effective. And then the fourth thing I just want to share with you is that when Washington starts to pass down unfunded mandates, whether it is through health care, whether there's no child left behind, or whatever the issue might be, and when money comes from Washington with strings attached that will be harmful for our state, is having a governor that will stand up and say, that's not going to be good for the state of Oklahoma. That will kill investment. The tax increases, the massive new spending that we're seeing out of Washington, that takes away our rights and our freedoms, and frankly even some of our state rights choices. I met with a group of an industry today that was telling me that the federal government's trying to put some new rules and regulations into their industry, and it'll hugely affect jobs and companies in the state of Oklahoma. I said, just tell the federal government to kind of leave us alone so that we can do what we need to do as entrepreneurs and business people to create jobs and get a good rate of return on our investment. So having a governor that will stand up. I didn't support President Obama's health care bill. I believe in a free market health care system. I don't support what's called cap and trade, which is the energy taxes. I believe it would be devastating to our oil and gas industry. Certainly would affect revenues coming in for your institutions. Having a governor that will stand up and say those type of policies will hamper growth and development, raising of taxes, more rules, more regulations, more heavy-handed. So those are some basic pillars of some of the things that I hope to work on as governor. I know these are very challenging times for our state's economy. It's challenging times for our state budget. It's anticipated that we will have another revenue shortfall going into the next year. And I will say that if State Question 744 passes, and I won't be supporting that, I'm all for improving education, as I've mentioned, but State Question 744 could also have a huge impact upon higher education and institutions and the money available to go for our colleges and universities. But there could be some big challenges financially for our state, not only with the economy, but with some of the state questions that are on the ballot.